It's story time. Chapter 4. Vicksburg.
Hi, I'm Shelby Scott, and I host the Scary to Sleep podcast. So, my husband is from Mississippi, and I'm from Southern California. We met in Los Angeles, and when we first started getting serious about 9 years ago, he decided he wanted to bring me home to meet the family. I'm a huge history buff, so I asked to see all the historical things he was willing to take me to. In California, for a long time, we tended to not really preserve things, so I was so excited to see so many old buildings and historical sites in general. He decided to take me to a Civil War battlefield while we were there because we don't have anything like that in California. Nothing preserved anyway, so we went on a mini road trip, just the two of us, to Vicksburg, Mississippi, to visit the battlefield there. We were also told that it was a good place to get a true version of what happened and not a Southern whitewashed one. In fact, this was kind of proven to us when we spoke to someone who we were unfortunately introduced to, a very unpleasant person. And we mentioned that we were going there, and they said it made the South look bad and that it was an unfair representation of the Confederacy. No joke. I laugh so I don't scream. Anyway, so we knew that it was probably a good place to go learn some real history. A lot of the battlefield has been taken back by the forest, and there's a road that goes through the woods so you can get to each part. It was a weekday, so we were basically the only people around. We were the only car when we first drove up, apart from the person running the little museum at the entrance. So as we were driving, we turned into a heavily wooded area. Like I said, a lot of the battlefield has been reclaimed by nature, which is great, but that's when shit got weird. So I noticed that the sounds of the forest were suddenly gone. No sound of trees in the wind, no birds. It was eerily quiet, like someone had a volume remote and hit mute. I didn't know if my husband was experiencing the same thing, and since we were fairly new to our relationship, I didn't want to scare him off with any talks of paranormal stuff. And yeah, we definitely hadn't had that discussion yet. So I was just keeping my gaze out the window, trying to stay calm, and I noticed he slowed the car to a stop without saying anything. All of a sudden, over the sound of the radio, I started hearing men's voices in my ears, like directly in my ears. I still wasn't looking over at my husband and was sort of frozen. That was when I realized he was turning down and then off the radio. It was apparent now that he heard them too. Then he turned off the car. The voices got even louder. It was as if we were standing in the middle of a group of men, and they could see us, but we couldn't see them. I can't remember what they were saying, but both of us afterwards said that we had the heaviest feeling that they were talking about us, and they seemed as surprised to see us as we were to hear them. As if a switch flipped, after I have no idea how long of sitting there in these whispers, they were gone. Then the sounds of nature returned at full volume, birds chirping, trees, some deer even crossed in front of the car as if they sensed that the coast was clear. That's when another car pulled up behind us. It was a one-way, very narrow road, so my husband quickly turned the car back on and we moved on. We finally had our first paranormal discussion as a couple. What's odd is both of us had previously in our lives been heavily into the paranormal, him leaning toward very religious aspects of it. At the time this happened, he had left the church and was a non-believer in anything beyond. I was a huge skeptic and had actually been grieving the loss of faith in the idea that something else was out there. It was an experience that rocked both of us, and neither of us had any idea of the other's beliefs when it came to this stuff. It's definitely been an experience to remember, and we both still have no idea what happened or what it was, since it wasn't a traditional seeing an apparition at the foot of your bed or even any kind of poltergeist activity. I've done a lot of research since, and the only thing I can come up with is something called a time slip. Some people believe that it's like two different timelines or realities intersect for a brief moment, and you get a kind of peek into the other one. Apparently, it's happened before with Civil War battlefields too. There are accounts of people running into men who they think are actors, just dressed as soldiers, but then one man is shocked to see them, inquires why they're dressed as they are and why they're here, and then they disappear. So, I think maybe we startled a battalion of soldiers just as much as they startled us.
Make sure you subscribe to Shelby's amazing podcast, Scare You to Sleep, for creepy stories narrated in a soothing way.